Hi, welcome to Wetpixel Live. My name's Adam Hanlon. I'm the editor of Wetpixel, and I'm joined today all the way from the US by Joel Penner. Hi, Joel.
Hey, Adam. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Normally, round about now, we'd be in a bar in Vegas or Orlando or somewhere, but we're not this year, are we? So,
Or possibly New Orleans,
yeah,
but that didn't happen.
No, sadly so. So,
No.
Joel is one half of a very dynamic multimedia creative company called New Media Soup. And one of the things that these guys do is they do a lot of event coverage, which involves a true kind of multimedia approach with multiple different inputs. And what I thought we could really learn from Joel, really chat about, is the way he manages all these different assets in terms of workflow. So I guess I'm going to ask you a question, Joel. It's traditional not to answer it, but how do you manage all this stuff that you've got that you're busy developing under, or maybe we should start off. What sort of media are you producing that needs to be managed in its workflow, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. So one of the primary events that I think of when we talk about event coverage is the digital shootout event that happens annually in June. And we'll be actually at a dive resort like Little Cayman Beach Resort for 3 months, like 3 weeks, not a month, not three months. That would be awesome if they let us do that. Yeah. But we're there for 3 weeks because we come kind of a team before anything happens, and then we're there for a pre-week and then a main week. And one of the things that our company is tasked with is providing this nightly slideshow content. So we have an immediate deliverable that happens almost the same day that I have to kind of provide, so people are pumped up and excited about, whoa, what did we see today? What did you guys do? And then at the same exact parallel to that, I am producing content that's going to end up in the end of the week sort of finale show, which is going to be the best of the best. And then after all of that's done, we're taking gear product reviews and all kinds of sort of what the lifestyle experience is of the digital shootout event, and creating this sort of final output content that goes up onto the website as well as social media and all kinds of things. So there are dailies that we're trying to fulfill that is an additional level of enjoyment for people that are at the event live. And then there's, we used to try to push out live content. And I know, I remember one of the first years that we were an attendee of the digital shootout, Eric Chang was on site with Wetpixel, and the internet was so shitty. It was, I won't say where it was, but, it was just piss poor. And unfortunately, he was like struggling at 3 a.m. trying to push out these dailies. And then we tried to do that same event coverage model with like live Wetpixel event coverage the next year. And we were finding ourselves staying up in the classroom 3, 4 a.m. just to push out some live updates. So, fast forward to today, we just decided, let's produce the best possible live event coverage for the attendees that come to the event. It's a lot of fun, and they're getting to experience these beautiful, sort of the best video and photo experience possible nightly. And then we output that at the end of the week. Plus, then we go to the website. So,
what sort of media are you creating then? I don't mean, sorry. What sort of media are you using to create these dailies, and then obviously the other video from that, or the other things from that?
Yeah. So I might actually, on a day in the life of New Media Soup, Joel, at like in the field. I might prep the night before my underwater camera rig, which I'm currently shooting a Canon 1DX Mark II and a Nauticam housing with the beautiful Keldon lights. And I might set that up the night before. But I might also set up a GoPro rig for underwater because I might be testing some of the new filters, or maybe it's the Hero 9 camera that just came out or whatnot. So I might be setting that up. So those are 2 rigs underwater that I might be dealing with that next morning. And then I might also have a GoPro or another Canon camera set up on a slider, set up for some type of a time lapse capture the moment while people are energized to get out and go on their morning dives. So we'll capture that. And while all of that's happening and my underwater rig is staged up somewhere next to the boat that I might be jumping on that day, I'm also going to throw up, my drone in the air and try to capture some aerial coverage before the boat leaves, the dock. Or maybe I throw in a second battery and the boat leaves the dock, and now I'm following our boat out, and I'm flying the drone in a moving, vehicle, and we're going through the cut, and we have maybe another battery on the boat, and I'm going to shoot in between the service intervals. So as you can imagine, the media coverage concept, there's a lot of coverage because you're trying to not miss anything. And at the end of it all, you want to produce the most sort of compelling high energy experience. And as we were talking about this earlier, it's just not possible anymore to be an underwater cinematographer and only bring your underwater camera and say, hey, well, here's the footage that I shot.
Okay.
Because unless you're working on a film and they hired you as the underwater camera person, and you deliver your hard drives at the end of the shoot. For the rest of us, it's a little bit more run and gun, one man, two person. My wife and I are a great team. She might be getting image capture and sometimes video as BTS, behind the scene video as well. So we're producing, we're trying to capture as much stuff as possible. So at the end of that, and I'll talk about the workflow of keeping organized in a little bit. But when we get to the final product at the end of that week, it's kick-ass. And I've kept organized, and I brought all these different assets together and put it into a final, Premiere Pro video edit. And we output that in time for the last show with the awards ceremony, and bam,
Awesome.
That's it.
So I mean, the first thing that's pretty obvious is you generate a lot of data, and you've got to wrangle that data in a way with time pressure as well. So it's not as if you're not creating a feature movie that you can edit it for a month or several months. So what tools do you use? So maybe let's backtrack. So you've got a bunch of cards from a bunch of different devices. What do you do with them?
Yeah. This is a great question. And so I will do exactly what Dr. Mustard did. I will answer your question with another question. No, I will back up and say, before we can actually talk about the memory card ingest, it starts for me a week or two before we even get on the flight. And so, for example, we're going to head to the Maldives shortly. And, I wanted to show you, the Maldives has, our flights there, they won't allow us to carry on, really more than 7 kgs or 15 pounds of carry on. And you can get around that a little bit with a Scotty vest and maybe, make your roller bag look really light, but it's still got to be not, that much footprint. We're carrying a lot of lithium batteries safely, and all of that has to be in our carry-on. So what I'll do is, for this coming trip, because I don't want to check any hard drives, I want to carry on stuff that's portable and small. So I have, for this trip, I have a couple of sets. So this is, basically these are the LaCie rugged raids, kind of show this, And, but these are actually, they're raid ones. So for video, these are 2 hard drives melded together, and I run them in RAID 0. So they perform in the field at a fast rate. I can edit 4K footage in real time with these drives. And so this is it's different. It's not the cheapest one. It's not just 4 terabytes of hard drive storage for storage sake. And then I use the Seagate 4 terabyte to back it up, because I don't care if they're USB 3, and I don't care if they're fast. I'm not trying to edit with those in real time.
Yeah.
So it starts with me earlier, and I think you're gonna Erin's talk is gonna come out pretty sort of concurrent to mine. We think the same way, and she was talking about testing her catalog before she travels. I like to make sure that my hard drives are formatted in the correct format, because oftentimes these drives might come formatted NTFS or FAT32, and that's not ideal. I edit on a Mac, so basically I've got a MacBook Pro that I travel in the field, and honestly, it's really what I work with at home, because the thought of moving between desktop and a laptop is just, when we before COVID, we would just love to be traveling, and I don't want to have to go, oh shoot, I don't have that, that data at home. It's at home. It's not on, with me. I like to just be mobile and have the mobile office. So basically what I like to do is I take all these drives, and these are ready to go. So I already did the work. I format them, I label them, something to the effect of like, drive 15, 4 terabyte. And then I've got drive 15 backup, BKP. And I format those, and then I set up Carbon Copy Cloner at home already to say, okay, when drive 15 backup, 4 terabyte backup is plugged in, automatically back that up. So when I'm in the field, and now I guess we could then talk about we can go right into the field. So I shoot all these different cameras, and so it depends on the day, so one day I might not shoot, as many GoPro cameras or whatnot. But, let's say, for example, it was Monday, and I'll have a folder name like 2020, 11/9. And then inside of that folder, I have all these different folders. So one might be Canon 1DX Mark II, Canon 5D Mark III, GoPro Hero 9, GoPro Hero 9 UW, Phantom 4 Pro 2.0, like I have these different folders. And then I start copying off all of my files and get all those files into my hard drive. So I'll just do a straight copy at that point, copy over, and then all of those.
So you say straight copy. Do you use like drag and drop, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I do a drag and drop. I know it's not a checksum, but I'll knock on wood and basically just say, I tend to verify things before I format the card, and then I run the backup. I run that backup nightly. So by the time I've gotten into a disastrous situation, I do have it at least in 2 places.
Yeah.
And so my workflow is it depends on the camera, because some of these formats are pretty large. But hopefully these sets of drives will be enough for the trip that you're on, and and that gets into a crazy formula for figuring that out.
So now we've got the data on your drives, but at the moment it's just data. How do you browse that then on your laptop in the field?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what I like to do is I like to take all of the raw files. So I'm these days, in the last 5 or 6 years, I've been primarily shooting video on a daily basis when I'm out in the field. But I am trying to set up time lapses so I can capture motion, which then becomes a video file. But it starts out with as individual files, and if possible, I try to shoot in RAW at all times. So the GoPro, I'll even do every 5 seconds RAW file, GoPro RAW file. And so once all those files are off of the, they're basically off of the card on the hard drive, those files are now in their separate folders. I will take the raw file folder, so GoPro Hero 9 Timelapse, and I will bring that into Lightroom. And so in Lightroom now, I'm organizing, I'm adding keywording so I know what this was for. And if I shot multiple time lapses on that one GoPro that day, I will actually go in and select an in and an out range for the GoPro raw files. and I'll color that. I'll color, I use the color ratings, not the star ratings. I'll use, I'll make the first set red, and then the second time lapse that maybe happened 20, 30 minutes later that morning is another set of 200 images, and I'll color code that green. And so I use color coding to distinguish where a time lapse starts and stops. And so then I'll do the basic processing of those images in Lightroom, select my in and outs, and sometimes I'll crop it to 16:9, but oftentimes I'll just export it out in all the res, because then in Premiere I could change the scale or the sort of aspect ratio and the hero part of what I want to feature later. So I will use an app. I like to use the third-party app called LR Timelapse. And LR Timelapse is great. It allows you to remove deflicker and basically get a pro quality video file export out of Lightroom. It's really unfortunate that the slideshow functionality and the sort of export to video functionality in Lightroom still just lags seriously hard behind some of these third-party programs. So we can export 8K if we needed to out of LR Timelapse. So
it's probably worth just breaking that down. So we've got Timelapse, which is a series of individual images that are being stitched together in a sequence, and at the end of that, they're acting as video frames, and you end up with a section of video. So we're using LR Timelapse. What we basically do is put a bunch of still images into it, and coming out at the end of it with a video sequence. Yeah, cool.
Exactly. And there's a plugin that is added into Lightroom that then allows Lightroom to send the appropriate formatted files and EXIF metadata and all that good stuff over to LR Timelapse so it can finish its job and make a professional output. So you can imagine, kind of going back to the digital shootout daily, that processing and exporting time lapses to get into that daily, nightly show doesn't always happen. It's usually something where I'm queuing those up and prepping them when I have time and CPU resources on the computer available. So by the end of the week, I can fit those into a final output video. So while I'm making sure that all of those files, those raw files, get organized in a daily into Lightroom, I might not send it to LR Timelapse until later that night or the next day or later in the week. So that's one of two folders. Maybe I had a slider with a Canon DSLR that was shooting a photo and then moving, and it's shooting a photo, moving, shooting a photo, moving. And so that I will also process those the same way. I will organize that to where those need to get eventually into LR Timelapse. But my video files, that's separate. So I don't like to import video files into Lightroom at all. I tend to steer clear of Lightroom at this point for managing and organizing my video files. So what I like to use, and there are a couple of really great programs out there right now. Howard Hall got me sort of dialed into this workflow. So I can't take full credit on my own. But I have probably, departed from his normal workflow. But there's a software application from Squarebox called CatDV Pro. And I use this program. And there's another great program called Video, which is great. And it's a awesome, it works kind of like Lightroom for video. And so, I find that if I can get, all of my video files into my database program, so CatDV Pro or Video, and get organized to where I can kill my darlings, as Erin would say. I can delete the stuff that I flag it. X is similar keyboard structure to Lightroom. I can mark that as an X. Or I even use a star rating, 1, 2, 3. If I really think it's an amazing clip, like I was fortunate to see, mating turtles, it's like 4 stars or 5 stars or something, So it's like you get a couple of clips where you save that star rating. But then what I do in CatDV is I will take all those video files and I make sure that I have some level of descriptions. I don't get into too much of the scientific terms. I watched your guys's yours and Dr. Mustard. Really impressive. Hats off to you guys. I will get as granular as loggerhead turtle. Shout out to Jason Bellport. Sorry, my friend. I will get as specific as that, but in terms of some of the more crazy thing, I'll say ornate ghost pipefish. Beyond that, I tend to try to keep. I do mark the dive site because we do get requests for video footage, stock or even imagery, and we like to look back and go, oh, okay, where was that? Oh, that was at TK3 in Lembe Resort?
Sure.
Oh, okay, cool. So I like to be able to search for that. Yeah. So to finish off the selection ingest, sort of what, kind of getting organized for video, I use what's called, there are range, how do you describe this? I can mark in and outs in CatDV, and then I can make a range selection and name it. And what's cool about that is that my in and out points, they actually get saved into the metadata in the video file. So when I send it to Premiere Pro, the video files come into the bin, and they're not just, oh, here's all the clips that you like that are star rated. I can actually look in the preview window and see the range markers. And if I simply click the first range marker, hit the I key, then click the out range marker, hit the O key, and then hit the apostrophe, basically the comma key, it drops it right onto the sequence timeline. So I have to think of any way to become the fastest possible editor, because I've got that daily that I need to submit, and show at a nightly slideshow, but I also need to stay organized in bins with all my best clips, for the end of the week sort of premiere video or whatnot.
So I think this is in many ways the parallel with still editing is this idea of exporting into Photoshop and bringing it back in. This is the same sort of idea. So basically you're preparing your clip in video or CatDV, and then exporting that into Premiere, where you're stitching it together and doing the other bits of pieces you're doing to it before you export it into a final format.
It's even better than that though. So there's no transcoding. There's no exporting. They're just references, and that's probably a key differentiator too. Is the reason I like to make my daily folder structure of 2020, 11, 06, or 10, and then all of my camera subfolders, is that once I do that, once those files are copied into that folder structure, that's where those video files reside on this drive for me, for pretty much forever. Like I keep it organized in that way. So CatDV knows, and same thing with video. It knows like, oh, that's where it was. It was stored on this drive. And if you start moving things around, it's like cheating on any of these programs. And then it doesn't know where those files exist anymore. And so I like to keep it in a folder structure organized. And the cool thing about that is that CatDV is just really referencing those raw video files. And with the fast enough computer, like a current MacBook Pro 16-inch, you can play 4K 60 video in CatDV pretty much real time, hit your in and outs, make your range markers, add all of your metadata, save that database, and then select all of your 3 stars or greater and drag them into this little button that says send to Premiere Pro. And then it round trips it and you open it up in Premiere. And now Premiere's referencing the same video clips that you didn't have to transcode. You didn't have to, retool anything. And so you're not wasting any time with transcoding, or, you hear about people talking about workflows like, oh, I make these little 1080, P video files so I can edit them quickly. You kind of unfortunately have to do that if you have a slower computer, but I don't have time for that. In our workflow. We need to be able to get it in and out and, add some titles, do some color correction, and, basically get it to a level of quality that's acceptable. And so that probably would be my lead to the next step is I get all of my selects into Premiere Pro. And now it's like, well, what what are my assignment responsibilities? What do I have? What is my output requirement? Is it a daily, or is it just, oh, I'm just working on what's happened at the end of the week? Or for you guys, for anyone else listening to this right now, it might be, oh, well, I'm going to be at Lembe Resort, and so I need to make sure I stay organized daily. And that's the other thing is Howard Hall reminded me of this one. He would sneak away from the bar, which, as you know, for both of us is a little tricky sometimes, but he's very responsible. Yeah. And he will make sure that he gets his organization for the day done in Cat TV. And that's really important because you can get into the weeds hard. And then you have a video, drive that's full of 3 or 4 terabytes or even 8 terabytes of video footage that you're never going to touch once you get home. You get sidetracked by other work responsibilities or whatnot. And so we have to show some level of responsibility in the field.
So moving away from the field briefly, when you get home, John, you've got these footage, you've got everything else on drives. Do you import those into a main drive, or do you keep them on separate drives, or how does that work then?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends and colleagues that move things over to a larger, like a Pegasus or whatnot. For us, we've just come up with our own thing, and it may not be the best. Hard drives are expensive, and when it comes to purchasing drives for use in the field, and then the idea of purchasing a whole nother set of drives for use at home, and then formatting those field drives and then resetting those. The thought of accidentally stomping over some valuable footage or whatnot, and it's just there are some things that I think we probably are continuing to refine in our workflow. But this works for me. It's what I do, and so I pretty much just have the drives that I travel with, and we try to keep them organized at home. And there are some larger drives, like I have a couple 12 terabyte drives that I'll move things over to. But then you have to relink those within your database. You have to let them know they reside somewhere else now.
Once those fill, then you just buy another drive. Is that the plan?
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Fine,
and so, for example, at the digital shootout, which is for us in the United States, it's a Caribbean flight, and we're able to carry on 50-pound roller bags and think tank. Think tank's great, like full size think tank roller, not just the international, but full size think tank roller, full size think tank backpack. And I'm not bringing these. I'm bringing the big G-Tech, full like 8 terabyte or 12 terabyte with another backup, because I know I can edit in real time that much faster on those drives. They're Thunderbolt 3 screaming drives, but you're not going to carry that. That would take the 15, the 7 kg allocation right there. Yeah. For one drive. Yeah. And so that's not even factoring in all the lithium batteries we have to bring for the drone, for our underwater Keldon lights, for any of that stuff. So, so I would say that's kind of a little bit of the drive thing to, in the full workflow. But I want just to finish up my workflow. It's in Premiere, which is, Premiere Pro is my video editing software of choice. And, in collaboration with GoAskErin, that's one of the, components that I've been teaching over at GoAskErin.com is Premiere Pro video editing and workflow. And we have 2 sessions up in the GoAskErin on demand. One is the Premiere Pro intro, and then the second one kind of delves into deeper techniques of more advanced color correction, using parade and histograms, and kind of getting a better color grade of your final edit. So cool. my even if it's a daily edit or a daily workflow to get that video file to the digital shootout that evening, I'm still going to get my selects onto a timeline, synced up to some music track that I picked, and just try to quickly get a rough cut before. Don't go down the rabbit hole of color correcting clips and really finessing it, because it might end up on the cutting room floor. it might not make that video. And then you spent 15, 20, 30 minutes that you didn't have color correcting a clip that you didn't end up using. So video is a crazy beast in that you have to also factor in time for the export, because, export takes time. And, if you can work with a computer that can edit natively with the video files, you're not doing any transcoding, which is great. So we might edit on a 1080p timeline and reframe 4K so we can punch in and reframe content, things like that. But I will do all of that and get my edit and then look at everything and go, okay, this turtle footage, I need to ban the cyan on that, or this clip, it goes to another dolphin clip, and that, those two side by side, I need to match those better. So I'll work through all those issues kind of at the end. That's really the sweeten, the finishing it off.
So get your production basically in a fairly finished form before you start color correcting and all that stuff is really the message, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's like there's a step that or multiple steps that I've overlooked because it's just a difficult workflow to explain in 15, 20 minutes. Who knows where we're at on that point. But, what I notice is a lot of people, if you don't have the Cat DV or the Video, the bare minimum you want to do on a daily is set up a Final Cut Pro project or a Premiere Pro project, and get your files for the daily into a bin or a folder, and then drag all of those onto a sequence and literally just start tip and tailing, just cut them down. So that in the very, very worst possible scenario, you get home from your dive trip and you have a sequence of all of your best clips. Yep. And then you can find your music, because it's very overwhelming to get started sometimes. Like, oh, I don't have the right song, or I don't know what story I want to tell. And we're not even getting into whether you have a documentary aspect or whether there's voiceover. I'm just talking about what we get hired to do a lot of times is like this power puff, punchy like music video. It's like high energy, high entertainment, excitement, and it's it's a minute, or it could be as much as 4 minutes or something. It's usually kind of in that sweet spot. So
that's very cool, Joel. So you mentioned that you've put some tutorials on GoAskErin. So there's two Premiere Pro tutorials.
We currently have two sort of Premiere Pro video editing. We call it kind of a 101 and a 201. So start with the 101 if you're not comfortable yet with Premiere Pro for video editing. It is focused around the underwater video shooter, and so it's literally in all skill levels accessible. That's how we tried to market it. You could effectively edit with GoPro footage, or all the way to a high-end DSLR or Red camera with the software. So we're trying to teach it where the footage is underwater video clips, and some top slide time lapse and some slow motion and some drone footage maybe. And just because that makes the point. Yeah.
Just to reiterate, GoAskErin, those will be on. You pay for those, don't you? Those are. Remind me how it works, Joel.
Yeah. So up on GoAskErin.com, there are kind of two primary tabs you want to keep an eye on. One of them is our live events. And the live events are free. If you can look at an upcoming live event and the topic is what you want to learn, you set your calendar, register. Yep. It's free, and be there, no cost. What we try to do is we try to record every live event and turn that into a kind of a full, functioning on-demand product. And those are priced out at a COVID price of COVID-19. $19 US. And so that's where you're going to want to go. So if you go to on demand, what we did was we recorded 2 Premiere Pro video sessions. I believe it was just a few months ago. So it's all still current with what the current software is. It was Premiere Pro CC 2020. And look at it in the on-demand section. You just can browse to there's categories. So we have topics on Lightroom, Photoshop, and Premiere Pro. So go to the Premiere Pro tab, and you'll see the two products there. And we'll probably be adding more in the future. So
yeah, perfect.
There we
So
go.
GoAskErin is the place to go for specifics on how to use Premiere Pro. Thank you so much, Joel. It's been wonderful chatting to you. It's lovely to see you, particularly in these strange times where we don't see each other as much as we possibly might expect to normally. So it's lovely to see you.
Yeah, miss hanging out with you, man. Hanging out.
Well, I'm sure we'll make up for it at some point. So yeah,
We will.
You take care. And thanks again. Thank you so much again. I'd like to thank our sponsor, which is Backscatter Photo and Video. I'd like to please feel free to give us a like if you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free also to add any suggestions or comments to the suggestions box below. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.